All right, quarterback tier list here. I've already done my list of, my list is out there of my top quarterbacks, 1 through 32, top starting quarterbacks in the league right now. But I wanted to do it this way as well, kind of talk about how I actually feel about certain players. Because, sometimes people will say, why do you have the 17th rated quarterback above the 18th rated quarterback? What are you doing here? But the reality is I kind of view them as similar assets. And if I was a GM, I wouldn't necessarily, give up too much more for one guy over the other guy. So I think tiers is sometimes a better way to actually, evaluate these guys. So we're going to be using the, logos here for the starting quarterback. For the Titans, Ryan Tannehill, he feels like B tier to me. He's not mediocre. There's definite value in Ryan Tannehill. And we're going to get into a lot of Ryan Tannehill types in this video of the kind of the good players, but do you pay? Probably not. Kind of the guys who you could win a Super Bowl with, but only if you're paying them very little, if they're on a rookie deal, or maybe you get them in a trade and get a little money that way. That's how I view the B tier guy. It's kind of how I view Tannehill, where if you're going to win a Super Bowl paying him, probably have to get a little lucky as well to do so. That's how I view him. The Dolphins with Tua, I'm going to put him in A tier. I think Tua was legitimately awesome last year. Not just because of the situation, he was legitimately awesome last year. But if there's a but there, I can't put you in S tier. And there is a but there with Tua, and it's that, he got there's the injury history, and it's still just 1 year. We've only seen 1 year of awesomeness from him. So it's not disrespect to what he did last year, but I'm going to keep the S tier for really the ones I feel like are no doubt about it. And for the Jets, for Aaron Rodgers, maybe some people would disagree. I am going to put him in S tier, though. I think that he was amazing these past few years. I think that he was great last year. I don't hold the lack of box score stats against him. I think it was a tough situation. I think he made the most of it and actually still had a very good year. I don't think he was as good as he was in the past, couple years where he won back-to-back MVPs, but at the same time, I think he's still very good. He's someone who I completely trust to have a top 5 season next year, so he is S tier. And Joe Burrow, I think no one will really push back on him being S tier. He is someone who is the consensus number 2 quarterback in football, so him being S tier makes sense. Deshaun Watson, I think I'm also putting him in A tier. Again, before everything happened and he was coming off his last year, playing for the Texans, he would have been an easy S tier for me. But the fact that we've now, we haven't seen him play good football in 2 years. He played very little last year and didn't look good doing it. Now, again, was coming off of a ton of off-the-field stuff, to put it way too mildly, and also the, just not playing football in a while. You're going to look rusty. He looked very rusty, but again, we've seen the high heights that he can have, so kind of a tough guy to put in there, but I do think he is A tier because of what we have seen him do in the past. Then we're going to have Trevor Lawrence here, who again, I think some people might say he's already S tier. I don't think so. I think he's A tier. I think he had a very good year last year and showed flashes of being an S tier type of quarterback, but I haven't seen him consistently do that. Now, if he takes the next step and becomes that kind of quarterback, well then cool. Then he could be S tier. If I do this next year, absolutely, I could see him being S tier, but again, quarterbacks are who knows of quarterbacks? They're so weird. Who knows of young quarterbacks? Once you get good, you tend to stay good. But sometimes, there are guys who, Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota, we thought for sure after year 2 we're going to take the next step to be elite. It never happened. Lawrence, though, I think a better prospect than those two guys. So we'll see what he does in year 3. I'm betting on him being S tier at some point, but I don't think that point is right now. But could be next year. Could be this year. I don't know. Jared Goff here, he's another one of that B tier type guys, very similar to Ryan Tannehill in my opinion, of that very good quarterback that, got to a Super Bowl when he wasn't getting paid. Now granted, that Super Bowl didn't go so well, largely due to how he didn't, he played poorly, let's be honest. I mean, let's just be honest. It was one of the worst Super Bowl performances we've seen in the modern era by a quarterback. It just was. But at the same time, he still got there on a rookie deal. Can he get there getting paid? We'll find out this year, potentially. And again, Kirk Cousins, right there with the other ones. Same thing. That's kind of the thing about Cousins. He's a very good player, but it's just people always think he's not worth the contract. and I kind of agree. Baker Mayfield for the Buccaneers. Listen, there's some hope there. There's some potential there. Baker Mayfield has done some, nice things in a Cleveland Browns uniform before the injury. Can he return to 2020 Baker Mayfield? It's possible, but again, he hasn't shown it in long enough that, he should be D tier. That's where he should be, but there is always hope available. We then have Brock Purdy, who I can't quite put in B tier just yet. I'm going to put him in C tier. You could maybe talk me into B tier. I'm putting Brock Purdy there. Yes, not Trey Lance. Again, this is who I consider to be the best quarterback on the roster, not necessarily who is definitely going to start, although I think Brock Purdy could start as well. Showed some really nice things, I thought. He was a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo was, I think. In that year, it's just such a small sample size, and I didn't see anything from him that suggests he could be good in college. So, in a bigger sample size, does it again next year, he's at least B tier, if not better. But for now, B tier is where he's at. The Falcons, again, whether it's Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke, it's D tier. It's not a great situation in the quarterback room. I wonder if they're going to maybe try to draft a guy next year, if that's the plan currently. But as it stands right now, I just don't love this, this current setup here in the quarterback room. I don't think too many Falcons fans will disagree. Lamar Jackson, who is next up on this list, I think some Ravens fans might say S tier. I'm going to put it at A tier. The injuries are concerning. The fact that he's had back-to-back injuries. I don't think he's quite been the MVP caliber player that we've seen him in years past. I do think that he was awesome last year. I think you could argue he was the most complete version of himself we've seen last year. But, again, the injury, I just want to save the S tier for the really, really elite guys, and I don't think he's quite there just yet. He was number 7 on my board, just so you know. But I don't have that as quite S tier just yet. Then we have the Bears. Again, some Bears fans are going to put him in S tier already and say Justin Fields is the best. I'm going to put him in C tier, and maybe people feel like that's too low. You could talk me into B tier, I think. You could. But I just think that the reality is he's a wild card. The reality is I don't really know exactly where to put him, because next year I think that he could step up and be A or S tier. The reality is we have not seen the Bears have a good passing game with him at quarterback. That's just a fact. The question is, why? The question is it because he cannot develop as a passer and that's been the issue? Or is it because he's been throwing to, guys who, some of them are fringe NFL players getting significant playing time? And is it sort of, Darnell Mooney and the corpse of Allen Robinson trying to find ways to get open, and that's pretty much all he's had. Now he has, they added Chase Claypool at the end of last year. They obviously added DJ Moore. We're going to find out what tier he belongs after this year, but for now, I'm just going to put it in C tier. I want to see it. I want to see it before I'm willing to give you a higher tier grade. Again, I know Bears fans aren't going to be happy, but hey, I got to give my opinions on this stuff. Sorry, Bears fans. The future still is bright. The Cowboys, Dak Prescott, again, B tier, feels like he's right in the group of those guys of the good quarterbacks, but if you're going to pay him, you pretty much have to nail everything else to win a Super Bowl, and so far they've yet to get past the divisional round with him at quarterback, which is it's hard to get past that when paying a B tier quarterback big money, in my opinion. The Texans, CJ Stroud, listen, this is not me saying that CJ Stroud is not going to be successful. I think year one, it's going to take some time. And him and Anthony Richardson are both in the exact same place. So I'm going to put them both together of just like, they're young quarterbacks. It's going to take them some time. That's just how it works. I don't think they're going to be great year one. And that's what I'm doing. It's right now. It's not for the future. So for them, D tier. But again, it's not saying I think they're going to be D tier forever, just for year one. Next up with the Rams, I think you could argue for Matt Stafford, most of his resume suggests he should be in the B tier. Most of his, his regular season stats and analytics and everything are pretty much in line with Ryan Tannehill and Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott. But he also had an incredible postseason run where he won a Super Bowl, so that bumps him up to A tier for me. He's shown me he can win a Super Bowl. The question with these other guys is man, can you win a Super Bowl with those guys? And I get it, Stafford was getting paid $20 million by the Rams when he won the Super Bowl, not $40 million. he had an incredible run. He was elite in a postseason run that won them a Super Bowl. He is A tier in my book. For the Chargers, Justin Herbert, I'm also going to put him in A tier. Again, Chargers fans might bump him up to S tier, but I think he has to. Again, it's not totally fair to hold the team success against him, but the fact that no playoff wins is going to get held against him, right? You do have to win some playoff games at some point, I think that. Well, I would certainly sit here and say that when things were, maybe some of the numbers weren't so spectacular, I personally kind of fought back on that a little bit. I think he had some incredible, 200-yard games last year. The situation was not great. Yes, they have outside receivers, but they were both banged up. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were both hurt last year for a good chunk of it. And once they got back, we saw him put up some numbers. And again, didn't love some of the coaching stuff as well. So I think there's a very real chance he puts himself up into S tier. I just don't know if he's quite, I don't feel quite comfortable putting him in S tier just yet. Again, I'm being very picky with that stuff. The Raiders, Jimmy Garoppolo is C tier for me. Again, you could argue B tier potentially. Last year, he probably was B tier, but I've seen too much of him coming up small, not even in big moments, but just in plenty of games having some issues. And I think maybe got propped up a lot by a good situation, which he did good as well in. Again, C tier is not a disaster. That's a solid tier to be in. If you're a starting quarterback in general, you're probably going to be a solid quarterback, but I don't know if I'm quite willing to put him up with Goff and Tannehill and those guys just yet. We then have the Washington football team, the Washington Commanders. I'm going to put it in D tier. You could argue Brissett should be C tier. He was good last year. He was legitimately good last year, for the Cleveland Browns, and they might make the playoffs if he stays there. They kind of gave up on making the playoffs because they wanted to get Watson some reps last year. There's a chance they do make the playoffs last year if he stays in there. But again, I want to see it with Brissett. So for now, it's D tier. Sam Howell might start too, which that would definitely be D tier given what we know right now. But yeah, Mahomes, I'm gonna put him in C tier. I think that obviously Mahomes is S tier. That's no question. Best quarterback in football. I don't have much else to say. What else is there to say? Saints with Derek Carr. Carr, another one of these guys who I feel like totally kind of he embodies the B tier, right? And I feel like that B tier, those five guys, exactly who those guys are. They are the B tier for me. We then have Daniel Jones, who is not B tier. I have him in C tier. Now listen, I think there's some things that maybe I haven't given Jones enough credit for. I think his pocket presence has massively improved from being a massive weakness early on in his career to a pretty good strength last year. I mean, that playoff game, Evan Neal was getting beat every single rep, and he was still finding ways to, get the ball down the field. One of the things that definitely is concerning is the Giants have basically had no success throwing the ball more than 10 yards down the field. You look at their stats, it's really good, sub 10 yards down the field. Anything else is just a disaster. A lot of that has to be the situation, but again, until I've seen it, I can't give you credit for it, so I'm putting it in C tier, but there's a chance he could move up for sure. Jalen Hurts. Some people could put Jalen Hurts into S tier. He's actually my top quarterback that is in the A tier. I'm going to put him in A tier. I think that he's very good. But again, I've only seen it for 1 year. That's the but you have to say in the A tier. The A tier are always like, you could be a superstar quarterback, but, and for him, the end of that sentence is, I've only seen it for 1 year. So if he does it again, he's an S tier. That's simple as that. Plays like he did last year. Next year, I'm going to put him in A tier. Just that simple. He was amazing last year. The last time we saw him play was him getting an 8-point drive to tie the Super Bowl, and that's the last we saw because then the Chiefs marched down the field and won the game. So pretty crazy stuff there. Then we have Kenny Pickett with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Listen. The numbers were terrible with Kenny Pickett, but I'm putting him in C tier. I think he was much better than the numbers showed. And again, could he continue to improve as a young quarterback? I absolutely think he could. I didn't love him as a prospect. I had him as a fringe first rounder. He went 20th overall, so the NFL didn't love him. I think there's a lot of teams that picked top 19 last year that in hindsight would like to have him as a player. But again, young player. We'll see how he grows. We then have Russell Wilson, who's another one of those how do you evaluate Russell Wilson? If we're evaluating him on his career, he's maybe S tier. If we're evaluating him on last year, he's clearly D tier. I'm going to put him in C tier just because we have seen him be a, Hall of Fame level talent at certain points. I'm not sure if he's quite in the Hall of Fame right now, but we've seen him be on that trajectory. Terrible year last year, but it could have been the situation, and because of that, there's definite hope that he could get back to S tier potentially. But for now, he was terrible last year, so C tier feels, I think, fair. And again, for some of these young quarterbacks, for Jordan Love, you got to stay in D tier right now. I haven't seen anything from you. He had one solid throw where he threw it over the middle to an open Christian Watson, who then ran 65 yards down the field for a touchdown. Other than that, I have not seen much from him at all. Haven't seen much negative from him really at all either. I think he's looked like a young quarterback who hasn't gotten much playing time. But again, there's going to be a learning curve with him. We can't just expect him to be the next Aaron Rodgers because it's the Packers, right? That's not how that works. But there is potential. So it's not me saying that his career is going to be a disaster, but just I have to see it before I can give you anything above D tier. That's just how I view it. Bryce Young. Bryce Young out of these young quarterbacks is the one you could maybe talk me into being better than D tier, because I do think he will be good right away as a young quarterback and is the most pro-ready young quarterback. But again, still haven't seen him play in the NFL. The history of the NFL says guys who haven't played tend to have a bad first year and then get better as time goes on. So we'll see what happens there. But for now, that feels fair for me. Kyler Murray, I do have him in the B tier as well. Now, I have him as the best player in the B tier because he again, was a fringe MVP candidate, or not even a fringe MVP candidate. He was an MVP favorite at one point. When the Cardinals started off 8-0, but then after the injury, he just hasn't looked himself. Did not have a great year last year. Hopefully, he can rebound. Josh Allen, listen, might be some pushback on this. He is S tier for me. And I did not say this last year. Last year, I did not have him as a top 5 quarterback. I've been pretty low on Josh Allen throughout the course of this, my channel here. And Bills fans tend to get annoyed with me a bit about that. But without a doubt, I thought he had his best year last year. Again, I know people get on him for the playoff performance. I didn't think he was that bad in the playoff performance. I thought he was fine. It was the team. I mean, who's going to do good in that situation? Nobody. The team completely imploded. I didn't think he was, again, could he have elevated it, some of the stuff? Sure, but I don't hold that much against him for it. I think he's a star, and I think he's an S-tier quarterback. That's how I view it. The Seahawks, Geno Smith. I am going to put Geno Smith in the A tier. I think he's shown that. He was an MVP candidate last year, and with the addition of Jackson Smith and Jigba, could he take a next step? It's possible. It really is possible, so that feels right for me. And then finally, McCorkle, I am putting in the C tier. I'm not putting him in D tier just yet, although I do have to say I did put him at the bottom of C tier, so he's lucky to be in C tier a little bit. But at the same time, he did have a very good rookie year, so he had one of the better rookie years of a great rookie year draft class, right? He was better than Trevor Lawrence, he was better than Justin Fields, certainly better than Zach Wilson and Trey Lance, but year 2, is it just the Matt Patricia stuff, though? And that's why I'm still willing to give him C tier instead of D tier. It wasn't good, but Matt Patricia was his coordinator. So, we'll see what happens. But yeah, that is my tier list. It's a perfect tier list. I'm sure nobody has any issues with it. So, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.